Welcome everyone to Tell Me That. My name is Paul, and in this podcast I interview my dad to find out about his interesting, funny and enlightening life stories. So if you're interested in learning from my dad, then stay tuned.
Hey, hello son, back again, doing our next podcast, our next episode. And last time I got a little bit carried away because I was very much technic focused. But on the other hand, when you tell stories like that, you actually you put yourself back into that time, and it actually demonstrated the mentality of the company and of or the way I was thinking, you know. I mean,
Have you seen how I called the episode? How I called the episode?
No.
I called it Why Germans Can't Sell.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at that time, it was in the machine tool business at that time, you know, German engineering, that was just really appreciated. And at that time, when you visited customers worldwide as the sales manager of a German machine tool companies, I tell you, they rolled out the red carpet, you know, unbelievable. But this time, I want to focus more on people. Let's turn the clock back. I moved back to the original company that I came from. Nice office, secretary, I mean, the whole deal, you know. And I was kind of happy, you know, because it was kind of my dream to one of these days to become the managing director of this company, you know. So, but I didn't really, I wasn't not really counting on that it's going to happen that fast, you know. I mean, at that time, I was not even 40 years old, you know. But anyway, so in that company, I created my own sales department. I had 5 sales guys, all specialized in our products, and it was like in 3, 4, 5 months, you know, orders picked up, and business was actually booming, you know. So, and as I mentioned before, I always was very heavy involved in sales, especially when it came to bigger projects and special technologies and so on. And at that time, I covered United States, South America, and also Russia. Okay, the Americans because of my experience, because I lived there for a long time, and Russia because the requests for quote with the highest level of technology always came from Russia. You know, it's unbelievable. You wouldn't believe it. You know, they asked for machines that the German company would never ever think about. You know, but sometimes I was thinking that, well, they need a lot of these components also for other machines, you know, and they just change them a little bit and use it also on different machines. But anyway, I didn't care, and it was still a good market for us, and not as it used to be. But once in a while, we went there, I and my representative, he was living in Salzburg in Austria, and I always flew to Vienna and met him there, and from there we took an Austrian airline flight to Moscow, you know. Except one time, you know, I missed the flight, I was late, and I had to fly with a Tupolev 154. That was my first time that I flew with a Russian airplane. You know, I mean, there were 3 passengers in that airplane, 3 passengers, 3 stewardesses, and very noisy, very noisy.
Yeah,
you know.
they're crazy loud.
Absolutely. So anyway, I closed my eyes and I thought, well, this 1, 2, 3 hours they gonna pass by and
Actually, that's funny. You know, there is this one airline in North Korea because they only have one airline, Air Koryo, and they use still today a lot of these Russian airplanes.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, but they never had an accident.
well,
Lucky, I guess.
yeah, probably lucky, or they have bought so many Russian airplanes, even the used ones, that they have excellent spare part availability.
Yeah, they probably have. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you at that time, if you flew into Moscow, Sheremetyevo, you could see like hundreds of Russian airplanes. They were just standing there, and my representative said, well, most of these airplanes, they are not able to fly because there are so many parts missing,
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, it was a different world,
Yeah.
So, but at that time, Russia was still a market for us, even though the machine tool demand was shrinking. And whenever I went to Russia, once in a while I had to take an internal, a local flight, and it is. I tell you, it is a different world.
Yeah.
I have flown with that was the worst actually. My flight from Moscow to Volgograd with a Yak 42. Well, it's actually an airplane that. It's it can be used for military purpose and for transportation of people. So, like any airplane in Russia.
Of course.
But anyway,
all around us.
I tell you, the plane was loaded. Fully loaded. There were people even standing in the airplane. It's unbelievable, There was one guy sitting next to me, and even though there were all these signs, don't smoke, and after we were up into like 10,000 meters height, he said, "So now we're going to have a smoke on the toilet, And I said, no, sir, please stay here. I have some great German chocolate. Why don't you try that, And he ate like 2 plates of German chocolate, I just was trying.
And he was Russian, I guess.
He was a Russian, but it was kind of a student because he spoke English,
So he was quite young.
Yeah, not that well, but so we could communicate, So after he ate all my chocolate, there was still an hour to go, So and then, it was terrible, And then he got up and he said, "So now I'm going to have my cigarette on the toilet, And he got up and he left to the toilet. And I was just thinking about what's going to happen next, that big bang, and you see that guy passing your seat on that toilet bowl, And so it was just scary.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we landed in Volgograd, and the funny part was at that time, you were not allowed to leave the airplane prior to the crew.
Ah, okay, really?
So the crew was first.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and these 3 guys, they passed by, and I don't want to even tell you what they must have had a full bottle of vodka in that cockpit, Unbelievable. But they have taken us safely from Moscow to Volgograd, and
probably they can only do it if they're drunk. Otherwise they can't.
Don't know. It was still kind of scary.
Yeah.
So I have flown probably every Russian airplane that you know of, and there is a certain stage that or a certain point that you stop thinking about safety of Russian airplanes. But because when you travel in Russia and also here in the Western world at that time, you never heard about airplane accidents in Russia. There have been some, I'm quite sure, but you never really heard about that. So. I stopped thinking about it and I concentrated on my job. I mean, selling at that time was kind of easy because in 90% of the cases you were not allowed to visit customers. You had, like in this case, going to Volgograd was a total exception, You had to go to Stanko Import, that was the organization for purchasing machine tools for the USSR.
For
the entire
one organization for everything.
Yeah, one organization.
Wow.
For USSR. And you had to have your friends in that organization to get requests for quote. But I mean, basically, they knew that we built excellent machine tools, that our other competitor from Germany also built excellent machine tools, and at the end of the day, the volume of orders that they placed, it was like 50-50,
Okay.
I mean, they always threatened us with the other company, and the other company was also. But it was like a 50-50 deal, But so I mean, at that time, to travel Russia was well, it was not that exciting, I mean, Moscow was a very dark. It's not like today.
Yeah.
Today, Moscow is like Tokyo, But at that time, Moscow was kind of dark. You felt like being put back into the Middle Age. And there were not many hotels where Western people could stay. There was the famous one, the Narodnaya Hotel and Hotel Belgrade. And later on, the Iris Pullman Hotel was owned by Professor Fyodorov. That was the guy that started this eye surgery, eye surgery, but like on a timed belt, people were just laying there, and doctors on the right, on the left, and they did the surgery. It's this Professor Fyodorov, he had his clinic, and next to the clinic there was this brand new, beautiful Pullman Iris Hotel that he built with the Pullman Group from France. It was super modern hotel, great. I mean, damn expensive, but still. It was good, and they only accepted credit cards, So with rubles, you couldn't do anything. Anyway, so when we stayed at the Narodnaya, sometimes I had my little walk in the evening. I mean, it was kind of dark, and I went through a little street called Arbat. It's like a mini Champs-Élysées,
Okay.
It's but dark, I mean, they have some lanterns, some little ones, and it was so safe, There was always someone behind me, like 100 meters behind me. There was always someone, watching me. And
do you know which people were watching you?
Well, I mean, government people.
Government people.
Yes, of course. I mean,
Wow.
the crime rate at that time was kind of low, and
Okay.
especially with business people, it was. I felt safe there. I never had a problem in Moscow, and my representative, who was he was some kind of a guy,
Yeah. I
and
met
he
him
was,
10 years ago.
Yeah, well, he
was funny.
Yeah, Heinz was a very creative person, and you see, one problem that we had was we had to eat something,
Yeah.
and there were no restaurants in Moscow at that time, and the only places were the hotels, but it was always the same food, and was not really that good. But there were places like the Austrian embassy
Yeah.
and the German embassy. And Heinz always had a technique, you know. He called one of these taxis in quotation marks, you know, these big black Volgas that were driving around, you know, and that you could call, and you gave him like $5 and a cab, like a chauffeur cab, you know, and you said, well, take us to the Austrian embassy, and when you are in front of the embassy, you open the door and you let us out, and then you can leave, you know. So we did that a few times, you know, and when we got out of the car, and Heinz went straight to the when they had a what is it called,
when they had guest celebration,
celebration and so on, you know. So Heinz always knew when an event like that was happening, and you see the ambassador always was standing in front of the entrance, and he was greeting every single person, you know. And Heinz didn't even know the guy, you know. So with me, he went straight up to him. He shook his hand and he said, "Dear Mr. Ambassador, how are you today? I mean, you look better than ever. And did you ever meet my assistant, Willie here?" And he didn't even know the guy, you know. And
crazy.
What is an ambassador supposed to say in a situation like this, you know? He cannot say, "Well, who are you?" It could be very embarrassing, you know? Yeah. So he said, "Well, it's nice to see you again. That's great. I hope you enjoy your time here in Moscow. And why don't you go inside? We have a great buffet there, and you help yourself." So we always got something to eat in Moscow. You know, so.
And they never noticed?
No, never.
How?
Never,
I mean, at some point, someone
no.
needs to say, I mean, we don't know him.
No, but you see, Heinz, he spoke fluent Russian.
Okay.
You know, and he knew some of these people anyway, you know. Yeah. And except the ambassador, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was kind of fun, and after a few years, especially the closer you got to 1989, it was less and less, and they didn't purchase any machine tools anymore. And we had one case where they had purchased 15 million Deutschmark machine tool, and they called us in and they said, because you are our friends, we let you know in advance that we are not going to be able to pay for these machines. So you keep them in Germany and you sell them to someone else. But these machines were so special, you know, you couldn't sell them to someone else. So, and since Heinz and general manager of Stanko Import, they had a very special relationship, let's put it that way, special relationship, Heinz asked him for help. You know, he said, "Well, what can we do?" And he said, "Well, if you can manage to take this document here, it's a copy of your contract, go to the Vneshekonom Bank. This is the at that time the only bank that could make deals and business with external banks like Deutsche Bank or Dresdner Bank or Commerzbank. If you get the signature of the director of the Vneshekonom Bank on this document, and then go into the Kremlin and get the signature of Mr. Gaida. Gaida was at that time the Minister of Finance, you know, and I said, "Heinz, this is, I mean, we don't even need to put time into that, you know." But, I mean, to make a long story short, after 3 days, Heinz came back, he had both signatures. I don't know how he did it. I don't want to know how he did it, you know. But he got the signature, we got the money, and we got into one of these credit lines that were still open, and we got the money. I mean, our company would have been otherwise in very, very deep shit.
And you also kept the machines and could sell them?
No, we delivered these machines.
Okay.
Because they paid for these machines, and they fulfilled their part of the contract. So we had to pack these machines and send them to Russia. I don't know what they did with these machines.
That's then
I don't
the question.
know, you know. But they must have had a demand for these machines because they placed an order for them. You know?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so Russia was a story by itself, and there was another country that was very impressive. I tell you, that was India.
Mm-hmm.
I did a lot of trips to India. India, I mean, either you hate India or you love India. You know, I mean, the first trip I made to India was was just terrible. I didn't like the smell. I didn't eat for a full week. You know, I didn't eat well because I just couldn't. I just couldn't stand the smell of the food, and I didn't feel well, and so my two representatives there, they joined me for my visits to a customer. It was a big project. It was like a government-owned company. They intended to build, well, let's call it big military components, yeah? And they said, if you want to get a big purchase order from us, you have to manufacture 60% of the components used for these machines have to be manufactured within India. Like all the sheet metal work and simple parts and so on. And the high-tech parts we get from Germany, you know, but it has to be a 40-60% mix. 60% India, 40% you. So, and I went over to discuss it with them. Well, they took me to a nice hotel in Hyderabad, and we were just waiting for our contact with this company. They said, "Well, we're gonna pick you up from the hotel, you know." And we were waiting, and then I got the phone call. Well, there are two gentlemen here waiting for you, and could you please come down, you know? So I took my briefcase, I went down, and I saw this big black limousine, you know. These two guys, they could easily go through as bodyguards, you know, like, I mean, 6'8", and they were just, I mean, heavyweights, you know.
Yeah.
So one of these guys said, "Mr. Sarik, please get into the car." And I said, "Well, first of all, who are you?" "Well, you'll see, please get into the car. Our boss is waiting for you." And these two representatives that I had, two small Indians, you know, they were also trying to get into the car. And about 10 seconds later, they found themselves in the bushes, you know.
Okay.
I mean, it was so strange, you know. So they kind of, well, more or less forced me to get into the car. And then they took off, you know. And they drove for like 1.5 to 2 hours and into the woods.
Okay.
You know? And I thought, holy crap, you know, what is going on here, you know? They kidnapped me. But I don't think that my company is going to pay a dime for me, you know, so...
To get you released.
So after like 1.5 or 2 hours, I don't recall the exact time frame, they stopped in front of a big, huge villa, you know. And they asked me to get out of the car, and they guided me into the house, and we went downstairs, and they opened the door, and there was a huge room with a very long table, like 20 chairs on each side of the table, and at the end, there was a guy, very short hair, sunglasses. He had like a safari suit on,
Okay.
Strange, he was reading a newspaper, and these two bodyguards, they put me right next to him at the table, and then they left. And this guy didn't talk to me like 5 minutes, And after 5 minutes, I was kind of fed up with the situation, and I said, "Sir, is there anything I can do for you? I mean, there must be a reason why the two gentlemen have brought me here." And he took a document, he put it in front of me, and it was an agreement between his company. It was the company that I was supposed to meet, with his company and our company. It said, well, we agree that the mix of the components to build these machines is not going to be 40-60, it's going to be 30-70. And I said, well, sir, I cannot really sign this because it has to be checked by our engineers. And even though I have proxy for the company, that means I had the right to sign for the company, but something like this always requires 2 signatures.
Yeah.
So he didn't even look at me. He just pointed his finger onto this document and he said, "Sign here." And I said, "Well, sir, once again, and I repeated that, And he said again, "Sign here." So I thought, what the fuck, Okay, I took a pen and I signed this document. So he pushed the red button under his table. These 2 guys came in again, and they put me into the black limousine, drove me in front of the hotel, and kicked me out, and that was it, And my two representatives, they were waiting there, and they said, "Well, what happened? What did they do?" And I said, "Well, I just got kidnapped." And it was kind of strange. And I told them the story, and they said, "Well, we know the marketing manager of this company is here in Hyderabad. They have a nice office, and we know him personally, and we should go and talk to him about this." And I said, "Well, you think that's such a good idea? I mean, the guy that I talked to looked to me like that he is above any marketing manager or sales manager or whatever manager. He looked to me like he is the boss,
Yeah.
But anyway, they said, no, come with me and we're going to go there." So we went to this big tower, and there was an office of this company and marketing department. So we went there, and big greetings ceremony, and when we entered his office, I saw that document that I signed. It was on his desk.
How?
I don't know. I think these two guys, they had the order to take the documents, bring it to that guy for further action, So for further correspondence or whatever, So we were sitting in his office, and I said to one of my representatives, "Listen, is there any chance that you can get this guy leaving the office here? Because I'd just like to grab that document, And I said, "Well, what can we do?" And he said, "Well, one of you guys has to go out there, and when you are in the aisle, just start screaming or drop dead or do whatever, but get that guy out of the office, So one guy, he got out of the office, and then he made some noise in the aisle, and he fell down, and the marketing manager, of course, got up immediately, and he left his office, and I jumped to his desk and got that document. So when they got back into the office, I said, "Hey guys, we have another appointment this afternoon. Did you forget that? I can't believe it. We have to hurry now." And I tell you, we left this office. We went to the hotel. I packed my suitcase, got into that Lufthansa airplane, and I flew back to Germany. That was my first experience with India.
Crazy.
It was kind of strange. But there were also other experiences in India. I mean, in the meantime, but that's going to happen later on. In the meantime, I have some very good friends in India. And I met some of the nicest people in the world in India. I ate the best food that you can think of in India. It's so tasty and so great, And but that all came later on. During my time as a sales manager, there was one little story that I might squeeze in here. I went to see 4 of our mechanical engineers. They were setting up a big machine in Hartwell, which is like 200 kilometers north of Delhi. And I went to visit these 4 guys because the customer, the end user, had put them into kind of a barrack, with 4 little wooden beds in one room with, no comfort, nothing, Because our contract, it said the client, he will take care of lodging and food and so on, And for Indian companies, it might have been adequate, but for Germans at that time, it was no good. So these guys sent me a telex. Telex was at that time, it was the way to communicate, And they said, well, we just can't stand that. We are here now already 2 weeks. We have all kind of animals in our room here, and no, we're not going to take that any longer, So I went there to see what was going on. And when I got there and I said, no, this is not going to go on like this, I purchased 4 separate rooms in Hyderabad. And the day when I was leaving again to Germany, we had dinner at a restaurant near the hotel, and there was a funny story. We had a sandwich. Dinner. We had a sandwich, but it was very tasty. It was great, and we were standing at the bar, and it was a bar with on the wall was kind of a rail, rail that you could put your arms on and so on. And while we were talking, believe it or not, a big fat rat came out of that kitchen door. It was shooting up the wall, going along that rail. He was actually, the rat was actually crossing.
I was going to ask, how do you know it's a he?
Yeah, right. It's gender. Whatever. The rat was actually walking or crossing. One of my guys from the left to the right, walking up his arm to the neck, and on the other side, walking down and going along that rail, going down again and back into that kitchen again, That guy, he was close to dying, Really, he was close to that. And that was a kitchen we just got a sandwich from, So. Okay, nothing ever happens, but this is a story that we never meet these guys today, that is a story that we still talk about, It was kind of strange. But anyway, so later on I went many, many times to India. I even started a company in India, also in Hyderabad, but this is something that I'm going to tell you in one of our next episodes, So that was my time as a managing director of this beautiful company, very successful company, and but this should not stay for long that way, because the owners of the company, they had terrible things in mind. They realized that having your own machine tool division was not really going to work. They wanted to be able to purchase their equipment on the open market, so they were selling the milling machine company and my company again to a company in the northern part of Germany, actually a big shipyard. Well, they didn't know much about machine tools, but anyway, so and they had already purchased eight other companies, because these companies were kind of not cheap but reasonable, because the demand was going down. Companies, they were well off, they were well equipped, and they had good people. And the thought was, well, one of these days it's going to pick up again, So they bought already 8 companies that got kind of into financial problems, especially in terms of liquidity. So they got these companies at a very attractive price, and they bought our 2 companies, the milling machine company and the turning machine company. So 10 companies under one roof, and we were supposed to take the lead of this new machine tool group that was supposed to have a revenue of $1 billion within the next 2 to 3 years, which was ridiculous. But anyway, about this adventure, I'm going to tell you a little bit more during our next podcast. And all the best to the people out there. And again, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call us. Take care and stay on top. Be healthy. Bye-bye.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
See you next time, son.
Thank you everyone for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something from my dad. If you're interested in how his story continued, then make sure to tune in again next week for some more lessons. Also, make sure to share this podcast with your family and friends. I would love to see you again next week. Until then, have a good time.